aggressiveness there, especially particularly on that second level of defense, then I think we really have something. So that said, let me get into my 5 questions in no particular order, by the way. Number 1, can Jordan Love become the face of the NFC North? Right now, I think the Giants are I think the Lions are the favorites, rightfully so, in the NFC North. And I think if you were going to ask anybody outside of Wisconsin, you would say that Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, that is the face of the NFC North. Jared Goff and Jordan Love, both first-round draft picks. I think Jared Goff was either first or second. Obviously, with the Rams, the whole situation, we know the story. He's turned out just to be a really, really good football player in Detroit. I think a lot of that has to do with Ben Johnson, the work he's done with him. Obviously, bringing in Mark Brunell was a huge component of that. So let's say Ben, from a scheme standpoint, I know Ben, he's a master at that. But also bringing in a former All-Pro quarterback to work with that guy on the daily has obviously paid huge dividends. Goff last year, 407 of 605, 4,575 yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. Jordan Love, 372 of 579, 4,159 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks. So the big difference here is, for me, if you look at these offenses, Packers are losing what I thought was the best playmaker on the field for them is Aaron Jones. He added so much value to the offense. We're going to talk about this a little bit later with the offensive line, but you just think about what he gives Jordan Love, not only in the passing game, not only in the running game, not only the protection game, but the fact that you have to, as a defense, scheme for who's in the backfield, one versus another. Dillon's in the backfield, not A.J. Dillon's a good player. They're not hyper-focused on him. Aaron Jones is in the backfield. He's one of those guys that they come in on Wednesday as a defensive group and go, this is the guy we have to stop. That's gone now, and how that's going to play out is going to probably go a long way to determine, a lot of things about our play calling, the execution of this offense in general. Jared Goff has weapons proven weapons all over the field. He's got, we always talk about Laporta, bringing in him from Iowa, just a monster year. He's got 2 monster running backs, change of pace guy in Jahmyr Gibbs. It's electric. Obviously, Montgomery's a huge player. Amon-Ra St. Brown and company, Reynolds. They're just really, really good players all over the board. One of the best offensive lines in football. And so the table's set for him to really establish himself as this dominant player in the quarterback discussion in the NFC. But to a certain extent, we can say the same about Jordan Love. And for me, to be honest with you, this is as much about Ben Johnson versus Matt LaFleur as play callers as anything else. Ben Johnson, to me, when you just watch the sequencing of plays over the course of the entire season, not an individual game or an individual quarter, but he's getting up there, or he's already there with a Shanahan, with a Sean, the guys that you were thinking like, man, these guys really know what they're doing. They're putting their guys in positions to be successful, and they just have a knack for making the right play call and communicating in the right way with that quarterback, that receiver room, etc. Like, I just think Ben, I don't know how he's going to be as a head coach, but I think Ben is as good as there is right now as a play caller. Now, Matt LaFleur showed you last year what a great head coach he was down the stretch. He showed you what a good play caller he was down the stretch. But now you've got another thing to prove. You lose your best play. Your 2 best players are gone on offense. You lost David Bakhtiari. He has been gone for a while. He was your best player. Let's not make any mistakes about that. And Aaron Jones is your best skill position guy that you've had there for the last 5 years. So what does that look like now? If you want Jordan Love to overtake Jared Goff as the face of the NFC North, which I think he's perfectly capable of doing, it's going to be as much about Matt LaFleur as it is anything else. I will say this about the last point about Jordan Love. For me, getting this contract done before training camp is absolutely mission critical. This is not one of those things that you need as a distraction. I know that everybody says, oh, nobody's distracted, blah, blah, blah. If he has a good game, what does that mean for his contract? If he has a bad game, if he has 2 bad games in a row, if they start slow, if the defense isn't playing well, if they put him in bad positions, if they're trying some new stuff because Aaron Jones isn't there and he doesn't look as good, until they figure it out. Having to listen to the questions about his contract is a distraction enough. Doesn't need it. Get the deal done. It's going to be $50-55 million a year. Dude's going to be unbelievably rich. Everyone's going to be happy for him. He seems like an incredible guy. He is, I saw one of the talking heads on ESPN said he's the the guy behind Pat Mahomes right now to start a franchise with. Listen, that's a really fun debate for all these experts. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks out there, but Jordan Love's certainly in that conversation right now. But he has proven it, at least in a small sample size, that he can deliver. Now, what is that second year going to look like as a starter when people have watched more tape on you, people have more tendencies on you? How are you going to continue to evolve and adjust? And then obviously, what does that relationship with your young receiver, young tight end room look like? How much are you going to get out of Josh Jacobs being the last thing? So question one. Now, question two. Can or how does Quay Walker take the next step and become a more aggressive run defender in this new defense? So we've talked about that second level of the defense needing to be more aggressive. Hopefully, with the new DC, the new system, the new philosophy, the new communication, the new attention to detail, the new development standards, hopefully we are better at identifying, attacking downhill, and making plays at the line, at or behind the line of scrimmage. We saw last year, I showed it multiple times on film, when you put Quay in a stunt, he's a better player, because when he is allowed to embrace his gifts and play free, structure frees you. Structure frees you. If I am being told where to go, I can now express my personality, my play style, and how I get there, what I do when I get there. If there's somebody in my way, how do I deal with him? So as you develop as a player, structure can free you, and then we can change the structure as you continue to evolve. And I think that's where they're at with Quay. In this offseason, are they able to help him automate his technique, his block destruction, help him improve his not football IQ, but football acumen, in the sense that how fast can I go from reading the situation to reacting and get to a spot? And then are we going to be in a position where we're going to play more of a fill and spill instead of over than a scrape over? How are we going to play the linebackers so that they're always thinking like, I got to get to my spot downhill. I want to have confrontation at or behind the line of scrimmage. The one thing that can happen when you put in a penetrating four down or defensive line is that, like, for example, if you have a double team on Kenny Clark up to Quay, and Kenny just decides, nope, I'm going to take out the tackle and drive him into the backfield. And the guard is going to take those two steps and kind of whiff on Kenny. And now he's going to try to redirect and get to Quay. That speed is actually better for Quay because he has more time to get off that block and get around. If you're holding and you're trying to take a double and they can walk you back, that is more difficult for the linebacker because he really has nowhere to go. You basically have like three bodies moving at you, right? So if you're an offensive lineman and you're working on double teams, you're always trying to move that human back to the linebacker at the second level because that linebacker's got nowhere to go. If you have a penetrator at the defensive tackle, especially one that likes to, what we just say one gap, what we talked about last year is instead of trying to take on a double, sometimes we'll just attack a single and make it a single block. That should help free up Quay to not only identify where the ball's going or where it should be going, but also gives him a little more time to react to what he sees and get off that block. You know, we brought in Ishereen Cooper. Look, you love the draft pick. You love him on tape, but he is a similar kind of player. He's actually a little bit smaller. If they can provide tackles for loss throughout the season without having to like up the amount of run sets that are required, that's fantastic. If this team just needs to continue to call up run stunts because they want to put him in specific positions, that's okay, but there's also opportunities for big plays, right? Anytime you have that structure, if the other team can identify it before the snap and make adjustments, well, you do have problems then. My question is, with those two guys, Quay in particular, because he's the older player now, are you able to, in the course of just regular base calls, base defensive play, are you able to improve your ability to run downhill and be aggressive? Or is this where Isaiah McDuffie comes in as a person who's played for this defensive coordinator, as a person who's demonstrated his ability to play downhill, and with the addition of more 12, more 21 personnel in the NFL, is this a guy who, even though he's still undersized, likes to thump, likes to play downhill, likes to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage? Is he going to be one of those guys that in training camp we just start hearing they're not sure what they're going to do, and maybe he ends up in the starting lineup? You know, something that I certainly would be a fan of. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of his. Here's the thing. The Packers are playing the Colts, the Niners. They're playing the Lions twice. They're playing the Eagles. There are games this year that are really going to test this group. There are games, whether it's the RPO action, whether it's all the different, run game combinations they have with the San Francisco 49ers, all the problems that both those guys up in Detroit give you, the Colts with Jonathan Taylor, and I'm sure their offensive line is going to be better this year. You just have to think that for me, the position that is under the most, not scrutiny, but is going to be exposed or going to be celebrated is going to be that linebacker position, because there's going to be some changes up front in the way that the defensive line goes about their business. But when you bring in Xavier McKinney, you bring in a Javon Bullard, you have these guys in the back. Like, I think everybody's pretty confident they're going to be able to make plays. I think where you're looking at is obviously that off corner with Stokes, or is it Valentine? One of those, how's that going to pan out? How are they going to use those really 3 or 4 safeties? Are they going to use one at the star position in the slot nickel? What's that going to look like? How's Nixon going to play in? But like, the real thing is, how is this linebacker crew going to improve their ability to make plays at the line of scrimmage and not 8 yards downfield? If they can do that, they got something.